Hello and welcome. I once again spent way too much time solving a problem that most people don't even care about, so I want to tell you about my journey. I really hope that I'm not gonna get too boring or too technical, but let me know how I did in the comments down below. You might be wondering, what is this problem? Well, this right here is my main camera. It's a Nikon D750 and it's been released around 15 years ago. So it doesn't know a lot of modern things like custom aspect ratios or aspect ratios at all. The only option that I have is this little toggle right here, which is switching between photo and video mode. And if you take photos in video mode, you'd get 16:9 aspect ratio in your photos. And this will also crop out my files. But honestly, I don't care about files. I can easily crop them in Lightroom later on. What I want is a good preview so I get a better understanding of my framing whenever I'm out shooting. And while I told myself that I'll never be one of those guys telling you that you should slow down, enjoy the moment, having a good preview on your screen while you're shooting means that your little brain will not have to think about cropping the image that you see while you look at your subject through the live view of your camera. No, no, none of that thing. Your brain can focus on framing where the aspect ratio is already there on the screen. Let's take the 2.4:1 aspect ratio. That's usually used in cinema. When you have that preview on your screen, you will instinctively match your framing to match what you've seen before. And you've seen lots of movies with great framing. So here I am, embarking on a quest to teach my old dog of a camera some new tricks. But how do I do that? Well, in the past, I've done some silly thing. I've applied gaffer tape on top of my LCD screen. And I even wrote an article about it, which got published on DIY Photography. Huge shout out to those guys. You see, this is literally the perfect width, so two stripes of gaffer tape would leave me with quite a wide aspect ratio, rather close to my favorite aspect ratio of 65:24. And I've actually went out and took a lot of photos with gaffer tape on my screen. It's annoying because I wouldn't see most of my settings and I would see just the main preview on my screen. Also, this is not a precise method. It's more of a dumb idea, but it works. And not only that, the gaffer tape thing actually works. It taught me a few things, especially if paired with a fixed focal length like a 50mm or 35mm lens. After half an hour of walking around with my camera taped up, my brain would instinctively be able to tell the framing. And I've never been able to do this with the usual aspect ratio that my camera has. I honestly don't know why, but it would be super easy for me to tell what would and what wouldn't be in frame on my next shot. And that felt like a superpower. So maybe you should experiment with gaffer tape if you don't have any other solution for custom aspect ratio previews on your camera. But let's keep the story moving. So after I've been shooting with gaffer tape on my camera for quite a while, I got a 3D printer. And one of the first things that I printed was one of these screen covers. It's just one layer of plastic with a few edges that would actually grab the screen. It's really thin and also not very durable. I've broken more of these than I can remember. I didn't know much about designing them, but because they would cost next to nothing, I keep creating them. And while in the beginning it was all about the 65:24 aspect ratio, I started to look into others. Found out that using 6:7 or 4:5, more squarish aspect ratios that are usually way harder to frame for, was really easy by having the right preview on the back of the camera. And what would give me a better preview on the back of the camera than disregarding the back of the camera at all and buying an external monitor? That's how I ended up with this thing. The only problem is that I actually have to assemble all this and mount it on top of my camera and then work with a much bigger system. And the reality is that I'm lazy. And sometimes I just don't feel like assembling this entire rig and carrying it around. It's a bit too much, even though the nice thing about it is that you can set whatever aspect ratio you feel like it with the settings on this little baby right here. This thing has more settings that I would ever need, and it also adds some more features to my old camera, like focus picking, that are really handy. But at the same time, because I'm running it off such an old camera, it's not really designed to work with our external monitor. The HDMI signal will turn off every time I take a photo, and the ergonomics of taking vertical photos with your screen completely out of the way and throwing everything off balance are really unpleasant. So while I do think that an external monitor has its use cases, and I use it from time to time, it's not a perfect solution for everyday use, at least for my case and my old camera. And this made me go back to janky 3D printed solution. It seems to be my specialty around here anyway. So let me put on my nerd glasses and tell you the story of my new 3D printed designs that go on top of the screen of my Nikon D750 and work much better than my first attempt. But first let's analyze the screen of my Nikon camera. It's tiltable and you're supposed to use this bottom edge right here or one of those two spots on the upper part of the screen to move it around. Also, it's pretty thick and if I use anything that would clip around the screen wouldn't go in place like it's supposed to. So no bueno there. Also, when I switch it to live view, we can see that the screen actually has a bit of a black border around, but it's not even. And in terms of the preview, you won't see anything on the bottom parts. And one of the things that I'm gonna need to figure out if I wanna do this right is the middle of the image that the sensor is showing onto the screen. So I picked up a piece of baking paper, placed it on top of my camera and started tracing the LCD screen, the edges of the plastic bezel, as well as trying to figure out roughly the spots where the image preview would be on that screen. And then I traced the same drawing inside Fusion 360 with the exact dimensions. But I don't want to bore you with that. And in terms of mounting, the problem was these upper bumps right here that are raised from the surface of the screen. I wanted my mask to stay flush, and that means that these bumps would have to go inside of my 3D printed part, which led me to design rather thick plastic parts. But that's kind of fine, it increases the rigidity and they will last me a lot longer. So this is how the final product looks, at least for now. They clip in place from top to bottom with a really satisfying click and they stay in place really well. You really can't take them off by accident. And they seem really sturdy. I haven't been using them for more than a few weeks, so I don't know how much they would last. But they certainly last a lot more than my previous attempt. So what can you learn from my experience? Well, if you're a photographer, you should definitely check out custom aspect ratio and try to preview them while shooting. This might actually introduce you to a new world and you might find out that you like one of them. And if you're like me, still shooting on one of these old cameras, I have the files free on my website. And speaking of my website, I'm also selling Lightroom presets, so maybe give them a try if you like my style. If you're working for a major camera manufacturer, please include aspect ratios in the menu of the camera. I'm sure it's not that hard, but don't permanently crop the file. We can do that in Lightroom and we will appreciate the extra pixels. And if you're none of them but you enjoy watching a nerd ramble about photography stuff, hello, how you doing? I hope you all enjoyed my video and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and please let me know how I did with balancing the story with the nerdy boring stuff that nobody wanna see. Do it in the comments and if you wanna watch one more of my videos, I would recommend this one. It's about Lightroom and editing in a completely different way. Bye!